Well, after hearing about all these changes that have gone on in the history of American film and the relationship between studios and independent, it's important to step back and ask, well, just what is a major studio today? If during the classic era they were producers completely in-house of films from start to finish who sent them to their own theaters, what does a major studio do today? Well, today they primarily work in distribution as well as providing some financing for films, although the actual production itself is usually handled by independent companies, not done in-house in the same way. And those independent companies are either ones that have been established for a long time and have made a lot of films, or they may be ones that are created specifically for making a particular film, just exist to make that one film. The major studios also today have these different divisions who specifically exist to acquire distribution rights, to pick up films through film festivals usually, with which the studios had nothing to do with prior to that. They had no hand in them whatsoever in their making. So of course that's a great arrangement. If you can distribute a film that you didn't have to worry about making, then you don't have to worry about having a film that turns out to be really bad. Like in the old studio era, you had to put all this money up to make a movie, which might turn out not only that people don't like it, but the film itself is just bad. Well, now you just wait and see, is there something you want to shop for? You can buy it and then stand to make a whole lot of money through distributing that thing. So what do studios do so well now if they don't actually make that many movies themselves? Essentially, they're working in marketing. Or developing projects that will have some kind of long, ongoing success, like, say, all the Marvel movies. So they help in financing and especially marketing films, figuring out how to make them appeal to audiences through marketing plans as well as merchandising. Doing a lot of stuff around not actually making the movies themselves. Who are they? The major studios today, and what I've done is I've included the name of the studio as well as the parent company, are 20th Century Fox, which is owned by News Corp, Warner Brothers, which is owned by Time Warner, Paramount, which is owned by Viacom, Columbia, which is owned by Sony, Universal, which is owned by Comcast, and then the Walt Disney Company, which is still Disney. So it's important to think, these huge companies are just one part of a much larger company that's very diversified, doing all kinds of different things, making money in lots of different ways other than movies themselves. However, they certainly are expected to make money. The current way that the studios work in terms of making films is that they will partner with independent producers. They'll agree that they're going to distribute the films, and after they usually have contributed some amount of money. And when it comes to deciding what they're going to make, who they're going to partner with, they employ what's known as a tentpole strategy. And this is essentially explaining how they've gone to balance what we saw in the 1970s with films on the one hand that appealed to smaller niche audiences, those independent-oriented films, and then the big blockbusters like Jaws and Star Wars or today's superhero movies that can be mass popular. The tentpole strategy means that you have a blockbuster or a couple of blockbusters, and then they're called the tentpole because that's going to be the big movie that lots of people want to go see. That movie is like a tentpole. It holds up the tent and it creates a lot of space underneath it, right? And underneath that tent, you can have smaller films that aren't going to appeal to as many people, but nonetheless will hopefully be successful. Okay, so the tentpole strategy, the idea is that those blockbusters are going to be the thing that really supports the company and makes the most money, but then you'll fill in the gaps with these other films as well, which you need to do also. So blockbusters, just a single blockbuster, can make up for a lot of little films doing poorly, even though they themselves flop. Like Batman vs. Superman is an example of a big blockbuster flop recently. In terms of distribution and exhibition, at the movie theaters, there's a trend towards a lot more screens in theaters and yet less movies showing on them. That is, in any weekend in the summer, for example, you have a big blockbuster out and it is going to be on many screens at the same time. Indeed, that is the deal that the distributors make with the theaters, the exhibitors, is that they have to show their films with that many screens. And that has an effect of, even though there's more screens, there's not as many movies showing because of these kinds of agreements. What we also have is the importance of windows. Windows refers to different arenas for exhibition. Not arenas not physically, but arenas more metaphorically. Different places, different ways in which people are going to see films. So studios and distributors worked to create different windows, or what's called windowing. That is, when are you going to release the film in the United States? When are you going to release it overseas, or in this country and then that country? Then when are you going to release it to pay-per-view? When are you going to release it to airplanes? When are you going to release it to Netflix? When is it going to be on DVD? You're maximizing at all those different windows how much money you can make based on how many people are willing to see it. It's a very carefully timed approach. So you're not just thinking about theaters, although that's one important piece of the overall windowing prospect. So with that, I'm going to draw this all to a close.